One really nice thing about being on YouTube is how direct and immediate the feedback is. A few months ago, I did a video on my 6.5 PRC Tikka build, called it something like Budget Tikka Build for Real Hunters. You can go watch it right here. And appropriately so, I got pretty flamed in the comments because people felt like it was very far from a budget build. So instead of saying to myself, what's my ideal Tikka build? I gave myself the challenge of completely outfitting a Tikka that I would use for hunting with as little extra money as possible. Enter my 223. Now, fair enough, most people are going to say a 223 is only suitable for training. There's a huge thread on Rock Slide that would argue that to the death. We are not going to get into that debate here today. But everything I've done to this 223, you could do to a 7 Rem Mag, a 270, a 6.5 Creed, 7 PRC, any caliber in the Tikka lineup, and you would get the same benefit. Let's dive into what I did to this Tikka. So as it sits here in front of you today, this Tikka weighs 8.3 pounds. Let's go through the upgrades one by one. So let's start at the front and move all the way to the back. The first thing you're going to notice here is the Hunter's rail from Salmon River Solutions. The reason I like this rail is that it has a pick rail up front, and then it has Arca running the remainder of the force stock. And so you have a lot of different options. If you wanted to set this up on a tripod for predator hunting, you could use the Arca. If you wanted to put a bipod on it, you could use the pick rail. This upgrade comes in at $100 US, requires no modification to the stock whatsoever, and still retains your front sling point. Then we move back to the trigger. In my opinion, the trigger assembly in a Tikka is phenomenal. However, I feel like it's a little bit heavy. It normally comes in around 2 to 2.2 pounds. And even when you go in and manually reduce the tension, that's about as low as you're ever gonna get it. So for $695 US, you can pick up a spring from Unknown Munitions that has less pressure than the factory spring. Very easy part to install. It takes maybe 10 minutes. And now I've got this down to 1.4 pounds of trigger weight, which I think is a really nice blend of being light enough to give you a crisp, clean trigger pull, while still not being too light that you're worried about safety in the field. Now we're gonna move on to the optic and the mounting hardware. So I have the Tikka Dovetail scope mount rings from Unknown Munitions. Now, a lot of people will complain the lack of a pick rail on a Tikka kind of limits your options. Personally, I don't think it's that big of a deal. And the way these scope rings have been designed to work with these dovetails, and then the additional structure they've given them with the little pin that threads into the holes to stop any potential forward and back movement. I have had zero issues. I've had these scope rings on multiple guns, including my 6.5 PRC, a 308, and now my 223. Super easy to install. They retail for $140 US, so very budget friendly. And they are holding a SWFA fixed 6-power. Now this is the one element I would change a little bit if you were using this for a hunting rifle. I like having a fixed 6-power for my trainer because it kind of increases difficulty. It makes things a little more challenging. And if you can hit rocks out to 800 yards with a fixed 6-power, you can hit them with your 3 to 15, no problem. I bought this one used for like $350. But if you go on SWFA's site right now, you can get the second generation 3 to 15 by 42 in MRAD for, I believe, $749. Now this is a drop test approved scope. The glass is decent. The turrets are decent. Like everything about it is more than sufficient enough to go and kill any big game animal up to reasonable distances. And I don't think you're going to find any other scope in that price range that gives you that reliability of being drop test approved with the functionality. And again, for hunting purposes, it would be nice to have that variable zoom to go all the way from 3 out to 15. But for training purposes, I love the fixed 6. Finally, we are gonna move on to what I feel is the most significant upgrade for arguably the least amount of money that I've made to this gun. So it is fairly common consensus that the stock is one of the weakest links in the Tikka platform. And you're gonna have to dump a couple bucks if you wanna solve that problem with a completely new stock. However, Full Frame Outdoors has come up with 3 components that you can mount directly to your stock that will physically change the geometry of the stock and how you interact with it. I'm trying to find a way to word this appropriately, but I think it would be fair to say that one of the single biggest contributing factors to accuracy is how your rifle handles recoil. And your stock is the layer that is between the rifle, which creates the recoil, and your body, which manages the recoil. So you have to have a stock that is adequately set up to manage that recoil. And the default Tikka stock is not set up very well at all. So we're gonna start with the hand position first. It traditionally has a more of an old school sporter style handle. Almost everybody would agree a pistol grip is going to give you a more repeatable shooting pattern. So not only does the Full Frame Outdoors have a really good angle to the pistol grip, but it has this really wide palm swell. If you go and look, you can buy a pistol grip upgrade directly from Tikka. It's not even that expensive. I had it on here before. It's decent, but it's quite narrow. I have pretty big hands. The thing I like best about the Full Frame Outdoors pistol grip is that wide palm swell. So it fills up my hand, which makes it easier for me to have the appropriate placement of my finger on the trigger. A lot of people are gonna bury their index finger on the trigger. And then when they pull that trigger, there's this sideways movement or this like torque that gets applied to the gun. Ideally, your trigger should land in the middle of the pad of your index, the first kind of digit of your index finger. And when you pull that trigger, it should get pulled straight back, not over on an angle. Previously, I would have to pinch a stock kind of like this in order to get my finger in the correct position. But because of the wide palm swell of the Tikka, I get this very natural position and get very clean, crisp trigger breaks on a repeatable basis. Then we move to the bag rider. So I've experimented with several different bag riders. The thing that I like the best about this one is that it only takes up the rear 50% of that stock. And what that enables me to do is have my shooting bag support that bag rider, and then I can actually have half my hand on my shooting bag and half my hand on the bag rider and pull those both into my clavicle as I'm kind of settling into my shooting position. This is a thing I've really started working on ever since using the MDT Carbon, which I did a review on recently, and you can go watch here. And since I got that stock, it has this notch out of the bottom of the rear portion of the stock, and I've kind of developed this system of sucking the stock and the bag rider all back into my clavicle. And I've definitely noticed a reduction in group sizings. The last note I want to make about the bag rider is that it also changes the angle that the butt pad integrates with your shoulder or your clavicle. So it moves it back a little bit, slightly increases in your length of pull. But one of the problems with the stock Tikka butt pad is it almost had a bit of a backwards lean to it. So most of the times you would get the tip of the butt pad kind of digging into your chest if you were trying to bury things into your clavicle, or digging into this crease in your armpit if you were trying to bury it in your shoulder. Because the Full Frame Outdoors has kind of angled that kind of back a little bit more, you get much more full contact. And then additionally, I have replaced the stock Tikka butt pad with a limb saver butt pad. Again, super cheap. I think they're like 40 bucks. And then finally we move on to the cheek riser. So once I started shooting with the rock stock and realized the benefits of negative comb. So a negative comb stock has the rear of the rifle stock higher than the fore end of the rifle stock. I want you to think about it like this. If the stock is flat or has positive comb and you put your cheek on it, when the gun recoils, it pushes it into your face. So it literally impacts your face. When you have negative comb and the rifle recoils, it moves away from your face and it more appropriately manages the recoil in relation to your body. Now, I have placed the medium height cheek riser on my Tikka. I think that's gonna work best for most people, but you may wanna follow the instructions on the website just to make sure that you order the one best suited for your own personal fitment. But by placing that on there, not only does it raise my face up so I have a more overbore position, which is gonna handle the recoil better. So instead of the gun going up like this, it's gonna come back into my body like this. It has also introduced a slightly negative comb, which creates less impact on my face and enables me to handle that recoil better. So at the end of the day, what really matters is, has all of that improved the accuracy of this rifle? So I've shot this 223 extensively. And before I put on any of the upgrades to the stock, with factory Sierra 69 grain SMK ammo, which is the ammo that this gun likes best, I was traditionally getting 1.5 MOA groups. And that's with like 10 to 15 rounds per group. No BS 3-round groups that tell you literally nothing about your cone of fire. So while it's all well and good to have me sit here in the studio and tell you everything about this gun, I think it's more important to A, see how I engage with it, and B, see the type of accuracy I'm capable of getting out of it.
The safety glasses I have. Mine's too short. Yeah. This one feels short.
Just go bareback.
Yeah. It's good. I approve.
You gonna switch?
Think about it.
10 minutes.
What's that?
We have to go at 10:30, right?
Yeah, I think I'm
Almost 10:30. Yeah.
Now that I've finished upgrading the Tikka, reduced the trigger pressure, and placed all the full frame parts on the rear of the Tikka, I've brought that all the way down to 1.25 MOA groups with 10 round groupings. Now that is a 17% increase in accuracy. All of these full frame parts go for 85 bucks. Like, let's just go over this again. We got the Hunter rail for 100 bucks. The spring for $6, that brings us to 106, plus 85 for the full frame parts. That brings us to 191, another 140 bucks for the rings, 331, and then you want to add 750 bucks for the 3 to 15 scope. We're at about $1,100 to bring you from a factory Tikka, which retails for about $650 on your Optic right now. So sub $2,000, you are completely set up, scoped, ready to go, shooting 10 round 1.25 MOA groups with factory ammunition. So there you have it, folks. A truly budget Tikka build. Hope that satisfies everyone in the comments.